Dean, really nice to see you today. How are you going?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excellent. So I just watched this morning, Morning Hate, your new short film. Really intriguing story and really well told. How are you feeling now that you've finished it? How are you feeling about it?
Well, thank you. Relieved, actually. Yeah, it was not like the first thing I've directed. And I've obviously been on set a lot, but it's quite a different experience being behind the camera. But really happy. I really enjoyed the process. I mean, I think short films are a lot of time and work, and they're difficult because there's not much money ever, and you want to work with people that are good, but they're all working because they're good. But it's really nice to get it done and sort of have one thing under my belt that I can critique.
I was thinking, of course, you've worked with Peter Jackson, so you must have picked up an awful lot of skill watching him direct and other directors you've worked with. So has that influenced your style when it's come to making film?
Yeah, I definitely think so in a way. Like I pick up lots of different. I mean, I love film. I'm a bit of a cinephile, so I watch movies all the time. So I have kind of like a pretty nice repertoire in my head of references. But yeah, working with lots of people. Yeah, Peter was great to work with because one thing that he did, which I really liked, and coming from maybe a lot of TV, it was a really different experience because he just was really free with the blocking, and a lot of times the TV, because I guess time restrictions, or not even TV, just any job, they have some pretty classic setups. But he was unencumbered by budget as well, but also by I mean that definitely helps. But he's very creative, and so we would sort of turn up on set and ended up blocking a scene and rehearsing a scene in a way that I hadn't really visualized it, and that visual freedom was really, really inspiring. It's not just because of budget, but it's actually just an approach to filmmaking. He wasn't locked in by any, master, mid, close sort of parameter.
And I guess he trusts the actors that they've been looking at the roles and they understand part of that as well. So it's a collaborative process.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think he's definitely like you do your acting thing, and I'll work with that, which I think which was really good. He's definitely, in my experience, he's got a very technical eye as well, so he's always thinking, visually in terms of like visual interest or, new places to put the camera, which was right.
So this film was set in the trenches of World War I, and
yes.
So what was it for you? Where did the idea come from, and why this story? What did you want to tell?
Yeah, I've been trying to work out a succinct way of answering that because I figured these questions would be like part of the course.
I can always edit, so
Yeah. Okay. Let me try and reduce this down to a usable soundbite. But I guess the truth is, who knows why things initially grab you, right? Like my grandfather was in the Second World War, but I think what it is. I think it is about the First World War, and it's not related to the First World War, but I seem to look for it in the First World War. Is that there's something about conflict which has a very broad range of experience. There's something quite surreal and dark and inhuman and maybe quite full of humanity at the same time. And it's very mysterious, and it's not located specifically to the World War I genre or film military genre, but I just happen to like that way of expressing that feeling. And it's I don't know what that essence is, but it's sort of always had a pull for me, and there's something about the immediacy of being in a trench that is really fascinating, and I think sort of another big thing that I'm really interested in, which coincides with that genre, is what people do under stress, and so like, First World War is a really obvious example where PTSD became this phenomenon. People didn't know what was going on, and they called it shell shock. And there was people's inability to express feelings based on these new experiences. And the outcome was never being able to, they couldn't foresee the outcome because they'd never been in this situation before. And I think that's the repression of emotions and then the subsequent the unconscious expression of it is really and that's not related to specifically war films. I love that in all movies, when characters do strange things, and like No Country for Old Men and things like that. There's that interesting motivation to feel.
I guess also that, those men were facing death every single day. They didn't even know whether they would survive a particular day. And so I guess there's this fatalistic, practical nature comes out, doesn't it? That you can't spend time agonizing over whether you save someone or you don't. You have to make a quick decision.
Yeah.
So it comes across as inhuman, but the reality is, what choice do you have?
Well, I think war is silly, and I think that it is inhuman, and I think that's obviously humans commit it, but I think it's the inhumanity that makes it really awful. And, some of the stresses for these troops were just sitting around in a trench for a couple of weeks at a time, and also the proximity to England. They could be in one day surrounded by horrific events, and then literally 2 days later be back with their family having a cup of tea, and so that sort of cognitive dissonance between the two really messed with people. Messes with a lot of troops in subsequent wars, but the First World War was, for me, a really interesting example of that.
It was beautifully shot too. Dave Garbutt, it was the DOP, yeah?
I've known Dave since I did Young Hercules, and he was a focus puller. We used to call him Dreamy Dave. He's so handsome. Yeah. But yeah, I've had a good relationship with Dave for ages, and I worked with him on the Bad Seed TV show, and we just got along really well. And I love he's very skilled, but he's also quick, and he's also quite minimal. And I just like his aesthetic. And it was like, if you ever want to do a job, let's do it. And I said, well, actually, can I hold you to that? Which he might have regretted. Does anyone want? I don't know. But so he did that, and he was a big part in, because I wanted to stay below the line in the trench, and I really wanted the people to be in the mud, because it affects everything. It affects the mood, it affects the fatigue, the sound. And so he had this idea to put rails around this little trench and dip the camera in, so the camera could be moved around without the crew being in there, which sped things up. And it also meant we were freer to let the guys move without bumping into tripods, things like that.
And working with the mud and the water, I imagine that's a bit of a challenge.
Oh my God, so probably more of a challenge for obviously the actors than us, because we were just, when we were sitting up filming, you couldn't actually see the actors because they were below the line of the site. So we would sometimes forget, and we'd peek over, and there'd be like these sick, miserable actors being cold and bitching. Although we had Cohen Holloway there, who keeps the spirit up, I have to say. But yeah, it was a hard shoot. I knew it would be difficult, and I always felt really grateful that people actually decided to persevere. Matt Sunderland was quite a hero. He got in the water. It was very cold. He had a dry suit on, still freezing.
Yeah. Well, I was shivering myself watching it, because I was thinking, muddy water in a trench is not like jumping into a swimming pool, is it?
Yeah. And we had these big plants, because I live rurally, and our neighbors have a farm, and it backs onto a creek, and I had to hire a pump, because I thought, oh man, if we don't have any water, we're going to have to pump water in. But it just rained and rained and rained and rained. So all that water that Matt was in is provided by the clouds. So it was quite a taxing shoot. Yeah.
As director, you're in charge of the shoot, but in this one, you're working with mates. You're working with people you filmed with before. They're friends. So what's that dynamic like, that you're actually technically the boss of your friends? How did that kind of pan out?
Yeah. Well, one thing I was like, man, it's so much more fun being an actor, because you can just kind of like, in the sense that you have less control, but you sort of, you kind of form your own group. And in the evening, because a lot of them stayed at my house because it's right next to the location, so we'd have a beer afterwards and sort of decompress. But there's a slight gap that just opens up between the director and the actor. It's just by the nature of the thing. Because I was like, man, I'm so much more mentally busy and focused than I am when I'm acting. But I also think using my friends was great, because we have a shorthand, and I really like them all as actors, even the ones that I haven't worked with as actors before. I met, and I just got a sense for them, and I know what it's like to be an actor on set, and so I feel like quite. I feel pretty confident or to try how actors like to be spoken to generally, generally speaking. And yeah, and so I actually really love the process. It wasn't as much like fun, but it was much, I think, very satisfying. Very satisfying.
Yeah. Was there a Joker on set? Any of those actors?
Yeah, Cohen Holloway.
Yeah. It's funny. I would have thought Jared Turner.
No, he's quite serious.
He's lovely. He's lovely. I've interviewed him. He's a lovely guy. But I just thought, he would be a Joker, wouldn't he? But it's Cohen, yeah.
Look, they're all good. They're all good with a joke. But Jared can be quite quiet actually and serious. Yeah. Cohen is just hilarious, and he really kept all the guys laughing.
Yeah,
maybe at my expense. I don't even know what they were talking about down there, but
I'll try and find out.
Yeah, but and he's a big guy actually. Cohen's. I don't know. He's deceptively tall. He's a big guy. So he had to carry the stretcher, and he was relatively taller than some other people. So I know he physically had a bit of a tough time, but he just cracking jokes the whole time.
And I noticed Aiden Turner was the producer or executive producer along. You guys have worked, obviously, the Hobbit films. You're brothers, brother dwarves. Is there a bromance there? You seem to get on well on the red carpets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really love Aiden. Yeah, I mean, I think that we definitely bonded over during the Hobbit. But weirdly, I would say almost afterwards, we sort of became closer in a way, and we just meet up. And he obviously is in the Northern Hemisphere. But we were always like, I'm going to be cool to do something. And so we ended up meeting up in conventions and hanging out there. We went to Tokyo together. And yeah, so, and I wrote the script, and, he can't do it. He can't fly down to New Zealand for 3 days. Actually, you know what? To be fair, actually, he would have come down if he hadn't been doing pole dart. But yeah, he said, I'll give you some money towards it. And Graham McTavish he's a big war buff. He's fascinated with that stuff. So he contributed some money to it. The budget was very low. I think it was 40K.
That's tiny.
Oh, then plus post. Yeah, it's really low. But post was obviously on top of that. But that was boosted. We used boosted too.
So is this a start for you of a directorial journey, do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I love films, and I have probably 3 sort of drafts, I would call them, of stories that I would like to tell. But I think I also am a bit unrealistic in the sense that I sort of just would like to do those. And then that's in it. I don't see myself, and look, things change all the time. So don't quote me in, but I don't know if I would ever end up being a jobbing director. I don't know if my skill set would be good for that, or I don't know if I would be interested in that. Well, but maybe I would. I don't know.
I guess you just got to try, don't you? Experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a personal thing too. Like I thought, well, I always talk about films and something like, well, I need to try and put my money where my mouth is, or mouth is.
Yeah. Final 2 questions. So, one, and this may be quite difficult. Have you, looking across your acting career, do you have a favorite role, and why? If you can't think of it, that's cool.
No. I think I have several favorites for different reasons. Like I think, I really enjoyed the character that I got to play on The Convert. It's a film I did recently with Lee Tapori, and just the accent and the costumes and the historical setting. I love historical stuff, right? So that was for me, like, in terms of a role, a really interesting role. But then, like The Hobbit was amazing, not necessarily for the character as much, but what we got to do and the time we had on set, so that experience was pretty good. After the Party was a really lovely character. I love playing very understated roles, and getting to work with Peter Mullen made that a really fun job for me. So I tend to look at the jobs more in a holistic way as in a specific character, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah. And the final one, do you have a go-to comfort food? Something that you can't resist if you're feeling down or you're cold, or what is it?
Oh man, I've been sick recently, and I have been eating Marmite on Vogels.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I do. This is weird. Actually, this is kind of related to the short film, but Mum has always made these chocolate chip cookies, and I can't stop it. They're so good. And she would bring them to set as a form of catering, and just everybody would descend on them. And I think that like I would probably get through a good dozen of those if they were left floating around. Yeah.
Something about homemade, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's honestly they're probably, I don't know what it is. Just sometimes you feel like it's a home cooking thing. Maybe it's a nostalgic thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's your mum. They're from your mum. That's
from
that's
Mum. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, well, look, thank you for your time. Congratulations on the film. It's really well done and intriguing. So, all the best as it rolls out through the various festivals, etc.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good to see you, Andrew.